And all right, it went through and we are live. Hello and welcome to everyone who is watching the Written in Melanin channel, wherever this day may have found you. We are so glad that you are here. My name is Chelsea, better known as CM Lockhart. I am here with the lovely LaKase Cousino and the wonderful Antoine Bandele, and we are here to add some melanin to your pages. So today if you guys cannot tell, we are talking to Antoine Bandele. He is the author of the Sky Pirate Chronicles as well as the Tales From Esowon. So he is an indie publisher. He's an author. He is amazing. He does YouTube as well. So we are about to have this conversation and it's going to be great because we're all wonderful people. And gonna shout out to Ben because he was the first in the chat today. Whoop whoop, that's my bad.
Not a race, but Ben was first.
It's not, but if we were giving out awards, he would get gold. Just throwing that out there. Also, hey, Miss Barbara. Nice to see you in the chat. And hi, Sid. Hi, Mama Perry. I'm going to shout out to Miss Tracy because I know she's a silent watcher. Hi, Miss Tracy. Okay, so with that out the way, welcome. First of all, welcome to the Melanin Chat. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, for sure.
Awesome.
Very excited about it.
Honestly. And if you guys don't know, if you guys have been on the channel, if you've been on the Twitter, if you've been on the Instagram, we have been talking about By Sea and Sky by Antoine Bandele for the last couple of weeks, months, honestly. It's an amazing book and it just released. I will make up numbers, you guys. So let me know.
It's the easy one to remember. It's a big day for Black people in America. When it came out.
Juneteenth. It came out on Juneteenth.
Yeah.
So, it's, oh my God, it's so good. And I'm so glad that we get to share it with you guys and that we get to actually talk to Antoine about it. So instead of me hyping it up like I have been for the last couple of months since you're here, can you tell everyone in your own words what is, the Sky Pirate Chronicles?
So the Sky Pirate Chronicles, it's a bit different from most, I guess, steampunky, airshipy, fantasy sci-fi in that it is the transition period between, sea ships and then the emergence of actual airships. That's the external plot thread, but the more tinier one is that it's about a wife wanting to, win back her husband who has been stolen by an empire. And her getting tangled up into this action adventure that involves airships, which are these are not supposed to exist kind of situation.
And honestly, it's I'm going to say this probably about 1 million times, so y'all should just get used to it. It's so good.
It is. It's so unique. We don't see African steampunk. We don't see a female lead like this who's already married, already has an established romantic relationship. We're gonna try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. This isn't a spoiler discussion, but
for sure.
There's things that we see in there that you don't see a lot. We were talking off camera before the live stream started just about the cover itself. You guys can see it on the bottom right. Our heroine, Zala, she's got short hair. She's a Black woman. She's got a sweet sword. And Antoine, do you want to share with everybody what you were kind of telling us about just Zala's appearance?
So I'm an indie author. So I do a lot of workshopping with other indie authors and, in certain groups and, with just personal friends like that. And one group that I sent it to, this is early on, this is maybe a year ago, because this cover was made a long time ago, because there's another big story about this story, in terms of how it got made and all that kind of stuff. But when I put it out to, which we'll talk about, but when I put it out, I got some, I got comments who were that's a really dope cover, but then certain ones in there that were oh, it'll be cool. I wasn't sure if that was a woman at first. It'll be better, I think, if she had longer hair. And then I think I actually actively replied. I was well, actually, that's kind of the point of the reason why I'm making writing to begin with, is because I don't see enough of natural hairstyles and natural beauty. Even my artist himself, who wasn't used to drawing Black characters. He was someone from where's he from? He's from Thailand, I believe. It's some Southeast Asian country. And we had to go through a few passes of him going through hairstyles, and at one point he had short hair, but then she had a perm, and I was no, give her naps. That's her.
Give her naps.
and things like that. And sometimes like some of her features, like it took a while to like get it to where it is like today. Like I literally went through like 6 different versions of it.
Oh wow.
But yeah, like that was a challenge at first, and like just the fact that I had that pushback from just the cover, I'm like, yeah, this needs the reason in which I am writing is just showing itself, you know, like every time I do like this or that. So
absolutely,
that's a great point.
And I love that you mentioned that it took several times, and I'm like part of me is like, thank you for not just being like, okay, I don't want to like have to address this, like let's just have her look this way, because it's like it's so important for that representation to be there, because like obviously I'm living in my truth. This is my hair, it's short, it's nappy, I'm not finna pull no type of fine tooth comb through it and still have it by the end of the day.
Pop that thing, right?
Okay, it's gonna snap like in half. And so like seeing that kind of representation on a cover, and it's just like I love it, and it's important. And I'm just, the fact that you're willing to say, hi, no, she's not supposed to look like this. Like, yes, you gave her short hair, but her facial features should look more like this. And, you know, even though her hair is short, it needs to be like curly, it needs to be nappy. Like, let's not play around here and try to be like politically correct about it. Like,
right.
Draw her like as she needs to be drawn. So
exactly.
Kudos to you, sir,
that's a good point.
for not letting that slide.
For sure. Like that's just something, and then that's the reason why I'm writing in the first place, because I wanted to see, especially in the indie space, more African-based tales, and showing Black people not as side characters and not, you know, as, you know, necessarily bad, but as a monolith, that there's several of us in different, you know, different versions of us, which is even to the point of the hair. Like, you know, while Zala has a natural haircut, there are some other characters who don't, you know, like just because, you know, you see all kinds of that, you know, sort of thing. But yeah, I just like that I'm able to be indie because I can make all these choices and I have control. Because let's say like that was a publisher that came back to me, right? If I had one of the big houses and they're like, oh, we would prefer it if, you know, she looked like this or something like that. Can't say much when they're paying me, you know, X amount of dollars. But if I'm doing it myself and I say, no, this is the control I get to keep, and this is what the character looks like.
Absolutely. And oh, go ahead.
Oh no, just I wanted to jump off that really quick. Was it ever a consideration for you to approach a traditional publisher? Did you always want to do it on your own?
So funny. Well, initially, always wanted to be indie, and that mostly came off the back of I used to work for Apple in 2015, or from 2010 to 20. So basically, my early 20s was all working for Apple retail. Like, so I was the guy in the blue shirt who sold you, you know, your iPhones and fix your computer, that kind of thing. So I left there 2015 on my YouTube channel, which I've had since YouTube was YouTube. And at that time, Star Wars was doing really well. Then I had Avatar on my channel, Avatar: The Last Airbender, not Blue People, because I know some people forget that. But I learned entrepreneurship and just working for myself. So when I started getting into the writing stuff, I was like, oh, let me just do it myself. And then also seeing like, you know, the pros and cons of it. Pro being a control, also the pro being you get higher royalties. The con being that it's harder to get noticed and have your book pushed. And also you have to pay for everything. So like the cover artist I described had to pay for that. You know, my editing on my book, I'll have to pay for that. But your royalty benefit at the end of the day is going to be bigger. So it was just natural progression for me to do that. But really recently, I am writing a new young adult novel, and I have put that out. There was while the Twitter blackout was going on, there were some creators who were like, "Oh, you know, hey, I'm an Asian, and we'll take anybody who's doing Black fiction, you know, or if you're a Black author, not necessarily Black fiction, 5 pages free critique." So I did that to this woman, and she was like, "Oh, hey, I don't have any critique. Can you send me your whole page or whatever?" And then at the end of that, she's like, "Hey, you should probably like submit." And then I had a marketing consultant for by Sea and Sky say the same thing. She's like, "I don't usually say this to clients, but you should probably go the traditional route because you seem to have your shit together," and that kind of thing. And then my editor, the one who was the initial editor for this one, but not the final editor, she also was like, "Hey, you should try your hand at traditional." And I'm like, "But I like the control so much." And then also, I don't have a story currently because I'm like mid-series on a lot of stuff that I could push without it breaking the flow, because traditional publishing is a lot slower, and I don't want to break like kind of like the momentum I got going on. So I am trying to figure out what kind of story I could have that maybe could be like a standalone, because there is a thing called hybrid publishing where you both indie publish and then you also traditionally publish. One of my friends, Brittany Chanel, is doing that now, and she was telling me, like, getting in my ear about that. She's like, "Hey," like, because she also submitted and she got good feedback from the girl about, "Hey, you should, you know, write out your first 30 pages from like that. And she's like, yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll like traditionally publish one book a year, and then like I'll have my indie stuff so that like they can funnel back into each other and that kind of thing. And I was like, that's a really dope idea. I just don't have a story right now because I'm like mid-series on so many things. I need to like figure out something to do that. So yes, to answer your question in a very long-winded fashion.
But like
that happened.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you brought it up because who was it? I think we talked El Penelope when we talked to her. She mentioned that she's also a hybrid publisher. So this is like our second time like kind of hearing that phrase and having it brought up on the channel. But I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that you chose indie publishing, because I feel like sometimes, because obviously Written in Melanin is also indie publishing, and I love that you pointed out that you chose to do this, because I feel like sometimes traditional publishing is kind of like seen as the way to do it, and you only do the other options if you can't do traditional publishing. Versus like, no, I wanted to do self-publishing, I wanted to do indie publishing, like I chose to go this route for whatever reasons, like you said, like the royalties or the control, or even the speed with which you put out your books, or how you want to do it. There's so much more to it than just traditional publishing said no. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and the fact that you still have that choice, like hybrid publishing. Like just because you chose indie doesn't mean that you can't do traditional later or simultaneously. Like there are so many options out there, and I'm glad that you're bringing those up and that you're talking about it, and you're not like shading it and be like, oh,
no, of course not. Also on the inverse. So a lot of times what indies will do is that they'll build up their cachet and then have like their fan base, and bring that, as like, a bargaining chip for publishers to be like, hey, I already got a fan base on that. That actually happened. Do you get familiar with Evan Winter and Rage of Dragons?
Yeah.
It was indie published, actually. It was indie published for the first year of its life. So like the one that everybody recognizes now with like the Zulu shield and like the dragons in the background, like that didn't exist for like a year. Like it was actually just like the cover was a dragon like throwing flames on like the battlefield, and like he was like pretty big in indie, but then he got picked up by Orbit, mostly on the back of the success of him doing it himself as an indie. So that's another thing to leverage as well, is that if you do want to go the traditional route, sometimes it's good just to go indie and to build that up so that you can bring that to a traditional publisher.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. I think it's just there's so much information that we're not really privy to. Like we know this because we're in it, but I think it's good for a lot of authors who are still figuring things out to understand that there are multiple pathways, and a lot of these times pathways can benefit each other. There's really I don't think there's a wrong way to go about publishing. Yeah, you really have to like think about what's best for you and like where you are.
Right, and what you want.
That's really helpful.
Because everybody, I think, I don't know who I was talking to, but I said this before, like everybody wants something different from their book. So it's like, depending on what you actually want from your book, that's the route that you should go. So like if you want your book everywhere, and you want like to be, I don't say on Oprah, but that's who popped into my mind. But like you want to be on Oprah's list, and you want, it's not necessarily about, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, because I realized mid-sentence that that's probably not what I meant. But, like, if that's what you're after, then, traditional publishing, if you're fine with the wait, if you're okay with the wait, if you're okay with the system, if you're okay with, the cycle that it is of getting an agent and going through submissions and getting feedback, and it's a process, right? You have to be down for the process. If you're good with that, then, traditional publishing. But then there are also
then like the caveat to that too is that what some people don't realize is that with traditional publishing, you don't necessarily get Oprah necessarily. Like there's a lot of traditional publishers who aren't doing that well off because they don't get the same time of day as the tier 1 authors. So when you have like your Kings and your Pattersons and your Rawlings, like you don't get that treatment unless you're making Harry Potter or 1 billion books a year that are just like selling like crazy.
Right.
So that's also keep that in mind if you're going the route of traditional publishing, be very, very wary of that you're not necessarily going to get the time of day that you might think that you're going to get. Because a lot of times people think that, I'm going to have a traditional publisher, they're going to do all the marketing, when oftentimes, especially for mid-tier and low-tier authors, you're going to have to do that marketing yourself. It's going to have to be boots on the ground.
That's a really good point. I mean, and like I think we have this idea that we're going to get like a J.K. Rowling payout, and I think we've talked about it on the channel before, but when there was that publishing paid me hashtag situation, finding out that like someone like Roxane Gay is getting $10,000 while a new author is getting $100,000, like there really aren't any guarantees. And then if you don't make that back, I mean, if you're not making that revenue, you have to pay it back. So there's a lot of things that I think it's really important to educate yourselves before you decide to lock onto a.
And it's funny that you mentioned that the payback thing, because
Yeah.
what you're paying back into is what you would have already paid for if you were in
Yes!
like by paying all this. So yeah. Just saying.
And also,
Yeah, so true.
something that's not mentioned a whole lot, especially with traditional publishing, is like you might get a big royalty. Like if they give you $10,000, but your book doesn't actually make $10,000, like it's in your contract that they can ask for whatever you didn't sell back. So like if your book only sold like $2,000 and they gave you 10, guess who owes them $8,000 now?
Girl.
So just like also keep that in mind.
There's a lot to it.
And
a lot to it.
It's kind of like the NFL in my mind. Like everybody wants to be the star, but there's like a whole team that half of y'all probably can't even name. Like y'all probably know like 2 players who get all the screen time, and then like that's kind of how publishing works. Like you have those people who are the big names, who are the heavy hitters, who like drop a book or they say, "Hi, I'm thinking about writing words," and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm going to spend $15 to get whatever they put on paper." You have those people, and then you have people who like don't get that. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. And we're gonna move on to the next question because y'all know I have opinions.
Let's jump into. I want to like get into the story without. This is gonna be hard because we don't want to do spoilers.
Yeah,
but
I mean, we could talk to like the midpoint. I feel like because the midpoint is what the blurb talks about. So
yeah, we could definitely go there. Well, let's just like to intro it. Can you explain? This world is so rich with world building. You've got a lot of magic structures. So just for the basics, what was your process like developing this world? Was there a ton of research involved? Was it all just like off the top of your head? What did that look like?
I would definitely say it's more research than top of the head, but the top of the head stems from all of that research and doing that work. So this all started back, I think, in 2016. I think I watched the last season 6 of Game of Thrones, and I just literally on Google went African Game of Thrones and like looked up all the stuff, and that's when I found N.K. Jemisin, because I wasn't really that big of a reader. Oh, this is like I'm trying to figure out how to truncate this story because like basically in high school I was a writer. I went away from that because of the film industry because I'm in Los Angeles. So like for 10 years I like wasn't in the world of books and stuff like that until 2016 when I was getting back into it. But yeah, looking it up, but I didn't really find the kind of fantasy that I would want. And then I hear this from a lot of authors is that the reason they wrote is because they just didn't have the book that they wanted to see out there. You know what I mean? Like they literally just wanted to put it out there. So I did that, and I did African research, like just African history research for about a year, just reading books. Like just, I did world history, Africa, then I would start getting niche with like, I would do just Nubia, and I would just do like, Angola or, anything from like West Africa. And, as I was getting closer and closer, my brother was like, hey, there's this mythology that I know you're trying to do this African thing. This called the Kishi in my D&D book. And it's literally like a passage, like literally like one paragraph in the whole entire D&D book about like this, character that has a beautiful male face in the front, but then like a hyena in the back of his head. And it's like a cautionary tale. It's like women, like don't trust a pretty face or a pretty tongue, whatever, like think about what he could be hiding behind his head. And I was like, and all of this mythology that was about it, like how they charmed and how they sometimes impregnated those women and then like demon children like burst out of the belly. I was like, wait, how is this not a story? Like the Google Kishi book does not exist. It's all in short little passages and like D&D books or like mythology books. I was like, how has no one like in all this time of fiction, there's not one person, not even a mention like in a story, you know what I mean? Like a side mention of like how you get like the Sphinx in Harry Potter for like a bit and like but you don't. I was like, how's this nothing? So then that's how I got into doing it. And then as like I got more into researching when I knew like, okay, I'm doing the Kishi. Okay, where's it coming from? Oh, okay, it's from Angola. What people did it, the Kimbundu people. Oh, okay, and then like doing all of that kind of stuff. And then as I start writing and I'm like, oh, I need to fill up this gap that isn't like explaining history, or this is just me being like my own magic system or the way I like magic done. That's when I would, be off the top. But it would always stem back to the culture or the mythology that I was, originally inspired by. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
I love that you actually. Okay, so something that about me is like I really love people who do their homework, who do their research, who are very thorough about what they're doing. And so the fact that you just sat here and like, I did it for like a year. Like I did nothing but research and read world history in Africa for like a year, and then I narrowed it down, and even then it's just like I narrowed it down even further, and then once I found it, I went and researched this one specific thing, and it wasn't just like, okay, you found this one passage and you were like, you're gonna write a whole book about it and you're gonna disregard the culture of the people, the culture of, you know, like everything, just to do it how you want to do it with your magic system, because it's just like, ooh, it's fantasy, I can do whatever I want to do. Like, no, there are levels to this, and the fact that you're like, I was very thorough about this, like I was very intentional about this because this is what I wanted to do. Like, I respect that. I respect the grind. I respect the like, let me go and look it up, because it shows in your book, and it shows when you're reading it. Yeah, it
shines through.
Yeah, it's like you get it from the first page, and that was one thing that I was telling LaKase off camera. I was like, it's very like, you have to be in the world, and you're in it from the moment you pick up the book, because it starts off, for those of you who haven't read the book, first of all, I'm going to recommend that you do. There is a link in the description box below. And if you have Amazon, if you have Bookshop, if you have the internet in any capacity, buy Sea and Sky by Antoine Bandele. Go grab a copy. It's definitely worth it. But like when you start with an action scene, like it starts off in the middle of a fight. It starts off with you with these characters, and it starts off with the mythology. Like you're immediately immersed in the world, but you do it in such a way that it makes sense. And I give you kudos for that, because I've definitely read books where I'm just like, what is happening right now? I'm so confused. I need explanations.
I actually have an example. So like when we were saying about like research or what I do, perfect example in that first battle scene. So I introduced the Aziza and I introduced Paka. Aziza is straight up just lifted from the Doheny people of West Africa. Like that's just what the fairy. There's a fairy, like a literal forest fairy, and they're called Aziza. I was just like, oh, easy, like that's what I'm going to use. I made her a half Aziza because I want her to be a little bit taller, so she can kind of like not just be like a little Tinkerbell size kind of like lady. So half Aziza. But then with the Paka isn't actually a real thing from any African lore. However, since I'm basing this on kind of like East Africa and also with West Indies, sort of a mix, Paka is the name for a cat in Swahili. So I was like, oh, okay, since I don't have cat people, there's no cat person mythology that I can find for in African culture in this area. How can I pay homage to what I'm, kind of drawing from? And I was like, so usually I do this a lot. I'll just go to Google Translate and then just go like, okay, cat, and then I'll look up different things. And I'm like, Paka, I like that. Let me roll that up. Paka. Oh, for plural, Pakami. Oh, nice. Like, and that's something that Tolkien does too. Like he just created like languages that are just like the way that sounded, and then like, just going over different versions. So that's a perfect example of me using both something that's just directly lifted and something that doesn't quite exist, but still paying homage to the original culture.
Okay,
so that's a great example.
I'm going to say this because of everybody on this screen right now, I'm the one who knows the least, because she loves research and she does it for fun. Like that's how she gets her kicks, right? And then you've done it because you've written a book, right? So everything.
Ravenclaw's over here.
Right. I guess I'm in Hufflepuff. I got sorted into the wrong house. I don't know.
You bring us the snacks, which we appreciate.
That's fine. Okay. Look, I'm good with that. But I say that to say that, like, when I was reading your book, it's like, obviously, I'm functioning from whatever you put in this book is what I know. That's, like, my working knowledge. Like, I don't even gonna lie. I Google some stuff because, like, why not? But for the most part, it's like, if we didn't have this conversation, I wouldn't have known that you had just made that up. And that's how like seamless it is. And I feel like that just attests to your skill as a writer, and the fact that you did your research, because you were able to make it up. Like, and it fits,
Yeah.
So
like,
fit,
right.
Respect for that, honestly.
Yeah. And I like, from my side, as someone who loves research, when I saw Aziza, I was like, yes, I know what this is. I saw it and I was like, boom. Oh, so I really appreciated that, bringing, because like you said, Antoine, it's so true that African mythologies just aren't pulled into, it's like, there are 52 countries on the continent of Africa, and there's rich mythology. It's huge. There are thousands and thousands of like subcultures. So, there's a dearth of information, like just a wealth of things to pull from. So it really is insane to me that it's not happening more. I think it's starting to happen a little bit more.
Oh yeah, no, now it is, for sure.
Now thankfully, like, we're getting more. But like you will never run out of ideas if you tap into the continent, because there's so many cool stories to pull from. So that was really exciting.
It's a good book, you guys. Like,
it is. We're gonna gush over it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chelsea. Sorry.
Okay. Yes.
No,
my turn.
Your turn. I know. It's like.
All right. So in the book, you have Zala, and then you have her husband Jelani, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I wanted to know was, like, first of all, two things. One, thank you for making them married, because as a married person, I very rarely get to see like healthy, stable relationships, like loving relationships, and Zala and Jelani have that. So love that, right? But I also really love the fact that you are telling it from Zala's perspective. And so what I wanted to know is how you, as a grown man, decided to write from her perspective. Like, she's a woman, she's a black woman, she is a sky pirate, she is a different perspective from you, right? So like,
totally.
Yeah.
Right.
Where did that come from, and why did you choose to write from her perspective instead of Jelani's perspective?
Well, the reason for that is because my first book, The Kishi, followed a man named Amana, who was like your typical male protagonist. You know, he's kind of a hothead kind of a thing. And so I basically, because I do want to make sure this is I'm not presenting African people as a monolith or black people as a monolith. My next book, I intentionally went with a different POV. And so I started with the idea. I forget what came first, if the stolen husband idea came first or Zala herself came first, but Zala came from basically an anti-Amana stance, mostly because that story is very male aggressive to females, because that's just part of the folklore. You know, it's about charming women and, like, you know, eating them with hyena heads and stuff like that. So like, the fact that was there, I mean, that's the story I wanted to tell it, because I like that dark mythology I wanted to be put out. But then also because I am building out an entire world and mythology, I didn't want my second book to be like, more of that, you're just gonna see more of that. So I, you know, intentionally switched up POVs for me as a writer, you know, just so I can be able to know how to write more point of views, because eventually I do want this to be an epic fantasy. What I usually tell people is that right now I'm writing about Robert's rebellion before I write A Song of Ice and Fire. You're like, I'm writing about the prequel stuff that's happening. But this isn't the main thing. This is all basically prequel stuff that I'm doing until I do the big epic. So it was mostly because of that. It was like, the initial thought was like, okay, I had a very like not anti-female, but just like the females were victimized in that, because that's like, you know, that's the mythology. So I wanted to do something different for Sky Pirate in particular. So that was the intention behind it.
Okay.
And also hiring a female editor helps a lot with that too.
Yes.
Thank you for mentioning that, because like
we appreciate that. Well, yeah, because you didn't read like a guy writing a woman. I feel like I talk about this sometimes. Like, you can just tell when a man's writing about women, because it's just so like the focus is off. So, sorry, go ahead.
When you said that, all I thought immediately, and this is so sidetracked, it pertains to nothing really except for what you just said. So be mindful of that, right? I follow DL White on Twitter, and her name on it is Breasted Boobily.
Breasted Boobily!
Because in a book, a man was writing a woman, and when she woke up, he was just like, she breasted boobily down the stairs. Yeah. And it's just like...
Yes, that's what we have to deal with, Antoine. So we appreciate you tremendously.
Oh god, she didn't breasted boobily anywhere.
Breasted boobily. You know what's okay? This is a sad thing. Chelsea and I work together so much that I instantly knew what she was going to say when she started giggling. I was like, here it comes. But switching away from boobies, well, for a minute, I really liked with Zala just like talking about, you know, writing from a female perspective, that she wasn't like great at everything. That just kind of, I feel like sometimes people think to make a strong female character,
they have to also have strength.
She never cries. She, you know,
she can't be
physical
feminine.
strength. Physical strength, I should say. Not like, because she's mentally tough. She's a very tough woman. It's just that, usually you go like, strong female character. That means they can kick butt, right? You know, like so that was intentional too. So I'm glad you picked that up. So,
Yes, we talked about that. You know, as we were reading the book, it was so nice to see that, like, she can be a little, like, inept. Like, she's not going to be able to beat every guy up. You know, she needs help. She has a friend who's a fellow female who's also, like, they're just, like, working together. There's no competition. You know, that was so nice to see. Because it gets kind of tiresome, especially, like, reading black female characters. Like, we're always, like, super strong, no emotion, you know, and Zala got to be a woman.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so that was really nice to see.
And
So was that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chelsea.
oh no, I was just going to add to that. Like, I really like the character of Fawn and how
Yes.
even in the fight
Oh.
scene, she also had to recover. Like, they're not like these big tough and tumble women who could take a hit and like keep going. Like when she got kicked,
Fawn has a glass jaw.
yeah,
Oh, yes.
Fawn was tough, but then when she got kicked, she was down for the count. Like, that's it.
Yes.
That's the end of
I gotta say, I love Fawn. I think she's my favorite. I mean, I love Zala. She's
My mom loves
her
Fawn
heroine,
too.
But
Yeah.
Fawn is so cute. I love Fawn. I'm partial to fairies.
She is.
But,
If you guys haven't noticed, there is like a fairy little symbol here between us because she was determined to be a fairy in our little Melanin Chat logo. She was not going to have it any other way. So just throwing that out
what
there.
I am. Mischievous, light and airy, like to steal from people.
Tiny.
I'm 3 feet tall.
Yeah.
But was that like? I know you said you had a female editor. So did you set out to make sure you had, women looking at the story?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Most of my betas, I believe, it was actually majority female, because actually females are they're more likely to be readers than males are. Like I think the reader base for female is way more than males. Maybe not for Action Division necessarily, but I mean like as an overall thing, there's more female readers out there. So yeah, it was actually really easy to get those beta readers. Yeah, and it was very intentional to make sure they were in there.
Women had their eyes on it, and that really helps. So yeah, I mean, I think we talked, Chelsea, didn't we talk? Was that last week or the week before when we were talking with the Naked Firefly and Shay about writing outside of your perspective? And I think this is a great example of when it works. It's about people. It's not just about the idea, but it's about people who are looking at it. It's about the intention you're setting off with. And that's when you see it works.
Right. And it has to be at every level. So it's not like you wrote the story and then you were like, okay, I'm going to send it to my editor at the final step of it so that she can give me feedback. It's like you wrote it and then you had female beta readers and then you had like a female editor and then you said that you were going back and forth with your artist to make sure that she was feminine the way that she needed to be without like taking away from her actual characteristics. Like it has to be intentional at every step of creation and not just at the final step to be like, okay, I just want to make sure I'm not offending anybody, because at that point it's just like an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that helps tremendously.
But following that, my other question for you is like, we've been talking kind of like about the different bits and pieces of your writing process. So like, I know it started with this idea that you had, like, okay, I'm bad with names. Tell me the name of the first book one more time.
The Kishi.
The Kishi. So it started with that, and then it started with like your love of, okay, like let's make more books like this. So like, how does it actually go from, okay, I've got this idea, I've done the research, to okay, now this is a finished product, it's been through all of my readers? Like, are you a planner? Are you an outliner? Are you a researcher? Are you, well, clearly you're a researcher. We just went through that, so we don't have to do that again. But like, what's that like for you?
I am an extreme plotter, but what I have discovered actually recently, like literally like a few days ago, one of my author friends posted, because in the indie community, there's a big idea of like, get your first draft out as quickly as possible and just you write your vomit draft. And I've heard that several times. I mean, just from indie, just from writers in general, like to do that.
Yeah.
And then me and her, well, I guess I was discovering this internally, but I just was going against it because of the advice I always heard. And then for her on her Facebook post to say, and just have it click, is she was like, actually, this time I didn't do that. I like took my time to do my first draft because for her, it's a lot harder to just write vomit and then fix an entire novel afterwards. It's much easier for her to take it piece by piece. And then when you go back through it, it's not as much rewriting. So, and there's always different perspectives. And you always have to remember that if you hear any kind of advice or you ask for a request for advice, don't try it, but don't always take it at face value or feel like you are beholden to it and that it is the God's word or the gospel. It's just a guideline, that maybe worked for certain authors, but remember that we're all different people and all different authors. And for me, I was going against what I naturally was feeling, which is like, I know I'm supposed to be writing this really fast, but it's like, but no, when we do that, like it doesn't feel right. And then me discovering that, hey, I'm an extreme plotter. I need to take it slow. And so what I do now is I write in sequences. So I break it down. Most people do this, the 3-act structure. I actually do a 4-act structure because the second act is usually actually 2 parts that lead into the midpoint and then come out of the midpoint. And then from there, within each act, I have sequences, which are kind of like episodes. So I kind of structure out my chapters in an episodic form. You can kind of tell that with how I structured it with, especially with the POV switching and by Sea and Sky, because I have like the Zala section, Cream section, and then that bit, like, we got introduced to Kareem, we got introduced to Zala. That's like one sequence basically. And then I would put those out to betas, and then they will give me feedback, and then I will give them the next sequence, and then rinse and repeat as we go on. And then so I'm totally a complete plotter, outline all the way to the beat level. Like I can't write unless I know exactly what beat needs to happen next, or else I'll just be sitting there going like, what's next, like that kind of thing. And then of course the natural stuff of sending it out to editors, proofreaders. I also do my own audiobook, so that serves as like a final proofread, doing the audiobook with my narrator and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely an extreme planner on this end.
But oh, sorry, go ahead, I've been talking a lot, so
no, you go. I just appreciate that because I don't like NaNoWriMo. I don't do that stuff, so it feels good to hear that. I just think it's so important to say that like there's no right way to do it when it comes to writing your own book. And I too, we really are like House Ravenclaw. We're like neck and neck for the prefect of House Ravenclaw. But yeah, I agree. It's so hard to like go back, and I mean Chelsea and I have been doing that with my book, going back and like fixing everything, because I did it that way the first time, and I'm like, never again. Take your
it takes forever.
And
it takes forever.
I'm so happy with like everything in this conversation, because like you are like voicing the things that I feel deep in my spirit. Like, do not take it as absolute truth, because I kind of like, since you brought up NaNoWriMo, it's just like I feel like there's this idea that you have to like.
Oh, by the way, if you guys don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it's the national
novel writing month.
Right, where people have to write 50,000 words within a month. It's like a challenge to do that. In case anyone who might not know.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I've been so in my head about it.
I do that all the time. I like talk author terms, and people are like, "What are you? What are you talking about?"
It's like a super niche thing. Yeah.
But yeah, basically what he said, like you're supposed to write essentially a novel in a month, and it's based on this idea that your first draft, you just sit down and you just run through it, and you just get it out of your head and you get it on the page, because the advice is you can't edit what's not written. And so obviously that is true, but then
that is true. Yeah, let's not say that's not true. Yeah.
It's not a lie. That part is true. However, it's not wrong for you to be like, okay, I don't want to just sit here and just run through it, because then like the idea is that you're going to go back and edit it. And from my personal experience, kind of like what you just said, Antoine, it's just like I really kind of need to sit here and like think about it and process it, because I don't want to have to go back and rewrite the entire book because I didn't take the time to like fix this one thing or go over this one thing or really think this out the way that it needed to be thought out for this to make any sense, but that goes against the traditional advice. So like, really have to...
that sorry, Chelsea.
Oh no, I was just gonna say you just really have to take it with a grain of salt and like think for yourself. That is like my motto for everything. Like, ask for advice, get guidance, but also like think for yourself, because just because one person likes to bungee jump and jump off of bridges doesn't mean that you should also bungee jump and jump off of bridges if you're afraid of heights. Like, know yourself.
Like, listen to your spirit. Like, actually listen, because like I was telling myself that for like the past year and just resisting against that, because like, no, the advice says to do this, but then my body was like, no, like this doesn't work for us, man. Like, come on, like chill out, realize what I'm trying to tell you here,
right?
Like,
it's like those warnings that you see in front of video games. It's like, if this causes you seizures, stop and go see a doctor.
Like, you know what? I can have another seizure. I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Like, okay, cool.
Like, why? Shut off your headphone.
Sorry.
Actually, I was wondering, so, okay, because you like to take your time, you're a plotter, has this story taken, has it transformed? Is this
oh my God, yes.
Tremendous. Okay, what was? Do you want to share what it was before versus what it is now?
So yeah, because that's in my author's note. So this started as just one book. I was actually thinking that Tales from Esowon would be like one book from one different region. I would build out the region that way, but now it's turned into something else, where it's now series of books. Because initially this is supposed to be just one big book. At first it was all going to be from Zala's perspective, and I was going to do it as a duology and then do it from Cream's perspective. And I was like, oh wait, no, their stories are pretty tied. I probably should just have them as like two POVs at the same time. So then I started rewriting it, or not rewriting, but like inserting it and making it intermingle where it needed to. And then when I got midway to it, I think me and my editor, we were at definitely 200,000 words, I think, at that point, right?
Yeah.
I was like, that's a hard sell. Your second book, no one really knows you as an indie. You're saying to them, hey, can you read this 2,000 word book for me, like real quick? Like, I swear you're gonna love it, but it's like a 2,000 word book. And also it just had natural, because of, I structure, one act, two acts. It was already naturally showing itself in these three parts. So I was like, oh, you know what? Do you think it's a good idea if I just write this as a trilogy and then take this part, this portion, which I allude to is like the Alanim, portion that they're going to go to. Should I just make that the second book and then do that? And they're like, let's try it out. And so I did it, and I was like, oh yeah, this feels so much better, because it actually deepened the story, because I was able to go back and things that I kind of like went through really quickly, I was able to give more care to, because I wasn't trying to be like, oh man, the word count is 100,000. Oh my god, it's 150,000. Too long. Like, I was able to like, okay, now I'm back to like having 50,000 words. Let's see how I can actually have some conversations with the characters, like that big meeting that they have on that one female pirate captain's ship. Did not exist before at all. Like them getting to know each other, and then like that fight between Shamari the cat guy and the other pirate on the deck didn't exist until I made this into a trilogy. Almost all of that pirate crew stuff like did not exist. I mean, they did partially, but it was more like they picked them up and then they went to like Alanim, and that was it. But you didn't really get to know any of that crew. So yeah, like now it's a trilogy.
I like
That's
how you.
Great.
Oh. We keep doing it.
I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chelsea, please.
I was going to say, I love how you pointed out that like actually cutting your story gave you space to put more in it, because I feel like so often, especially as writers, we have the idea that, okay, if I stop my story, that's just going to take away from it. I have to take out of it. I'm taking away the flesh and the things that make it pretty, and I'm just stripping it down to its skin and bones to like hit this like number count or whatever. So I really like that you're pointing out, like, no, like by saying that, hey, I'm going to isolate this and I'm going to do it like this, I'm going to be able to give like more depth and flesh it out and add scenes that I had wanted to put in there to begin with and really explore the world. I'm like, I love the perspective that you put on things, because it's just like, that goes kind of back to what we said earlier in this conversation of why choosing to go indie was a good choice for you, because like you make that choice
if I was
yourself.
in a contract, then it'd been like, nope, you got to continue on with this. What you agreed upon,
right? There's no flexibility with that,
We talked to Christina Forrest, and her first book, they wanted her to cut 80,000 words?
I want to say it's like 20,000. She was at 80, and she had to cut.
She was at 80. That's right.
30,000 words, and they didn't like tell her what to cut. They were just like, just get rid of it, and she was like,
80. Okay, that's pretty bad.
And she was like devastated, and I was just like, I can imagine. I don't want to, but that's terrible.
That's tough.
It is. Well, you don't have the flexibility, from what I'm hearing, because I'm not in the traditional space. But it sounds like you're not really given the flexibility to discover yourself as a writer. You got to just like go in there knowing what it is, or they're going to tell you what it is. So it's been nice. Chelsea's my publisher, so we've been working on shout out. We've been working on my book to get like, it's felt like a partnership, and I've been able to discover for my debut, what do I want it to be? Who do I want to establish myself as? I have leeway to make mistakes.
Yes. So I'm not going to drag her on the Melanin Chat.
Not a lot. That's a handful. But yeah, so it's just really good to hear that. Yeah.
But also, I feel like it also gives you the freedom to, like you said, explore the world, because since she brought it up, I feel like I can mention that, like, the first version of her book wasn't necessarily the book that she wanted to write. It was just the one that she felt like would be successful, and going indie kind of gave her the freedom to do that. And it, like, from what you were saying, Antoine, it kind of sounds like it's the same sort of thing. Like, you're writing your book and you had in your head it was going to be this one thing, like it's going to be this one book, and then you were like, nah, let's think about this, let's reevaluate, and then let's change it up. So like, it gave you the space to grow, to do what you wanted to do, to not only make it what you wanted to, but to make it successful in the way that you saw it being. And I feel like that part is important. It's not just a commercial success, but like you yourself, the creator, are happy with it,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
So that was my rant. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
With the beta, because my betas went through this too. So they were going with it through me, and I told them midway through, I was like, hey guys, and I asked them like, would you think of it if it was a trilogy? And I went in and like, went deeper. They're like, yeah, going deeper, duh. And then what I did, those last 2 chapters in the book didn't exist in my initial rewrite of the book 1, and I was like, is it too much of a cliffhanger if I end it off as like this? And they're like, yes, can you give us like some resolution chapters? And those are, I feel, some of my better chapters, especially the Kareem one where he's talking about the sunset and like that came. And what's crazy too is because I've been in these characters' heads for so long, writing those 2 chapters, I think I did in a day in one sitting, because I had to put in so much work, with these people, and then just being able to be like, okay, the betas say I need like some resolution chapters. Let me like figure out what they would be thinking about, and to be able to just sit there and be like, okay, and do the work. Like to me, like as I was doing it, I was like, okay, when am I getting it? Where's my writer's block? When is it happening? When is it happening? And like just be able to do that. It was amazing because all that work was done. The foundation of it was done before, and it will just come out of you if you practice, what you've been doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
One of the things that I love is that you like send it to your betas and they were like give us more. First of all, that's got to be a great feeling. But I have found that like it's really actually fun to sit down and write what the readers want to read and to give it to them, and they're just like, this is what I asked for. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's such a good feeling. Oh my gosh. I feel like I could ask a million more questions, Antoine, but we're coming up on 50 minutes.
Yeah. So I know there are 2 questions that I want to ask. So
okay, well, probably the same ones
I have more books to write in the future and talk about. So
They'll
carry over.
Yeah, we'll keep it going. Okay. Go ahead, Chelsea, because I know she's going to ask what I want to ask. So that's the beauty of having a partner. Our brains have melded. We have a hive mind. So Chelsea, ask our final 2 questions.
Okay. All right. So it's like actually like 5, but I'm going to like try to wrap them up into one and shove as many questions as I can into
all right, let's do it rapid fire. I'll do it as fast as I can. Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. So on your website, you advertise the other books in the trilogy that are coming up. The next one being Of Ruin and Silk. Obviously, we're not talking spoilers for By Sea and Sky, and I'm going to limit you to like a paragraph answer so that we can get through everything. What can you tell us about that and like what to expect from Zala and her adventure coming up?
Okay, so the second book goes from the sea a little bit more onto land, and it's about this city, Alanim, which is based on an Arabia type city. In which case she is still on her adventure. We're gonna keep it vague on what that is, but we're getting more insight. This one's definitely more of a character piece and seeing how she's going to evolve and grow because there were some mistakes made in the story. Mistakes were made, and she needs to, make good on those mistakes. And also from the Kareem perspective, him dealing with a new position that he is acquired, and if he can deal with the responsibilities that come with that new title.
Okay. So gonna do a short plug here. I said this earlier, but By Sea and Sky, there's a link to the description. There's a link to it in the description box below if you guys want to check it out. That will take you to Antoine's website where you can purchase the book, and you can also purchase it anywhere books are sold. So don't be shy. Go ahead and pick up a copy, and you can also...
And the audiobook is really good.
It is. I've heard really great things about
John Rogers is awesome.
Okay. Next question. So we've been talking a lot about your book, and we've kind of talked about how you've gone indie, but like you yourself, like you have a publishing company. So like, I know that we have some writers in the chat and who watch the channel. So like, can you tell us about that, or if you're accepting work, or like how that works for you? Like, here's your plug.
So initially, I was just commissioning authors who were writing in the Esowon stories. But now it's expanded out because one of my friends saw, the professional quality, because I treat myself as a publisher. I don't treat myself as like, I'm just
Same.
doing it on my own, whatever, halfway do it. And when he saw me putting out like my books and how clean they were, the promotion, the marketing I was doing, that he was like, hey, I made this children's book back in 2012. Do you think we can like revitalize it and redo it? And so Knucklehead Fred, I don't know if you saw that on the website too. It's a children's book about a knucklehead kid. But yes, I am now publishing other authors. I now have 5 authors under my imprint currently, and 2 more that I'm in talks with right now, which are related to my young adult novel that's coming out next year, also on June 10th.
Awesome.
Hey,
I love Juneteenth.
Like that energy.
I love that energy.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too. We do have a question from the chat really quick.
Mhm.
I think it would help. How do you get to know your beta readers and your characters? I think that would help people to like. How do you find your beta readers? Is it just from?
Oh, find them. Also, I'm
Yeah, how
kind
do
of
you-
lucky. It's hard when people ask me that question because I am a YouTuber. I'm nearing 200,000 subscribers, so
Hey,
I have a lot of people who can potentially I can reach out
Gotcha.
to. So it's hard
Okay.
for me to say what to do because my path was, oh, I have a big YouTube channel that I can just say, hey guys, I do beta readers, and if you like Avatar, or if you like Star Wars, you probably
Right.
will like my books, kind of a thing. But generally, I start with your friends, I would say. But
Okay.
your friends who are critical. Don't just get the ones who will yes man you.
Tell
Like
you
you
yes,
definitely
yeah.
want those people who tell you no. The ones you get into heated debates with. Those are the friends you want reading your manuscript.
Right.
But also, if you go to Reddit, Reddit has some beta reader outreach. You can do Facebook groups. There's a bunch of Facebook groups of beta reader outreach.
Okay.
Or there's paid beta readers that you can look up online. Reedsy, Upwork, Fiverr. They're out there. There's options.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna throw this out there too because slight plug: if you're a Black writer and you would like to join the Discord group that LaKase and I are a part of, then all you have to do is leave a comment or reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram, and we will get you an invite to that as well. So there's also that. Also, a good place to look is Twitter because the writing community on Twitter is very strong. So there are always people looking for.
Oh, that's the big thing too. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll
beta
go like,
readers.
hey guys, looking for beta readers, and I'll find like a few from there too as well. on
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't think you need a ton of beta readers. I don't know. I feel like that's a lot. But I don't like a lot of people reading my
There's
stuff.
some people who have 50. I have an indie friend who uses 50 beta readers. I was like, how do you even parse through all those opinions? Like, how do you
Yeah.
go
I
into
think that's
that?
just too much feedback.
It's too much because it's just
But
like
each their own, I guess.
to each like she said it. We have a hive mind.
To each his own. Yeah.
Yeah. Last question for you, and then we are going to wrap this up. If you could give any writing advice to your younger self, what would it be, and what age would you give it to yourself?
Oh my god. 19 or 18 is right after I won a screenplay award at this Inner City Filmmakers. That's the name of the program. It was Inner City Filmmakers. I would tell myself, there are several people who are going to tell you should be doing this writing thing. Keep going. Don't stop now because you're going to waste potentially 7 years of your life not working on your craft because you want to do this directing thing. You don't want to do this directing thing. I'm telling you right now. And also read more. Please read. Don't waste 7 years not being able to read a bunch of works.
Right.
That'd be my advice to my 18-year-old self.
I love how hype you got. That made me I felt it in your soul.
If I would
like,
have caught
hey,
him, I'd be like,
do this
"Stop
right
doing what
now.
you're doing right now."
Just like shake them a little bit.
I know you're in Los Angeles and it's glitz and glam. Don't do it.
That's a really good point. That's great.
Okay, so that is our last question for today because we are coming up on this hour mark, and so we have to call it quits. We got to draw the line. But this
great conversation. Thank you so much, Antoine.
Yes, it was so great. It was amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thank
you guys
for having me.
Anytime.
Yeah.
You're welcome back anytime.
For sure.
Anytime.
If you guys are watching this in now or in the future, make sure you check out the links in the description box below. All the links to Antoine is there. His Twitter, his Instagram, his website, his YouTube channel, because he's almost at 200,000. So why not go support and subscribe? And also, if you're watching this, you probably love Avatar: The Last Airbender because we talk about it literally all the time. So
this is our church. Yep.
That is my current main squeeze right now.
and if you guys are interested in supporting Black writers, as we've mentioned here, Written to Melanin is a indie publishing company, so we would love your support if you want. There's a link to the Patreon down in the description box below. We also have the after chat. There are also some writer resources. There are also going to be some cool cover reveals and some exclusive content on the Patreon coming up, so you guys should definitely check that out. Be a part of what's coming up. That is the whole spiel. Thank you guys for watching. I've messed up the outro, so I'm going to try that one more time. All right, you guys, that is it for this author interview. If you enjoyed the video, please tap the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications. Head over to LaKase's channel from LaKase Marie and do that as well. Head over to Antoine's channel and do that as well. And there are links to everything in the description box below, so click on those, have at it. Feel free to talk to us down in the comment section below. If you're watching this in the future and this is not live, we will respond because those are the kind of people that we are. And that is the whole spiel. click on the Patreon link, join us there. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, we hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting. Bye, you guys.
Peace.